There is a city-state in the heart of Rome that covers 0.44 square kilometers. It has no army of consequence, no natural resources, no factories, no ports, no GDP in any conventional sense. And yet for centuries, it has quietly accumulated one of the most significant concentrations of wealth, financial influence, and economic intelligence anywhere on Earth. It does not publish audited accounts. It does not answer to any government. Its inner financial workings have never been fully exposed to the public. It is the Vatican. And this is the story of how a religious institution built what may be the most powerful, hidden bank in human history, and how it did so almost entirely in plain sight. Understand the Vatican's financial architecture. You have to go back to a fundamental insight that the medieval church understood before almost anyone else. Belief is a balance sheet, in an age before modern banking. Before fiat currency, before stock exchanges the Catholic Church possessed. Something that no emperor or merchant could manufacture, moral authority. And moral authority, it turned out, was extraordinarily convertible into material wealth. The system began simply enough. Tithes, 10% of every Christian's income, flowed upward through parishes, dioceses, and archdioceses toward Rome for centuries. This alone made the papacy one of the largest revenue-generating institutions in the known world. The church was not content to merely collect innovated indulgences payments in exchange for the remission of sins. Became a sophisticated revenue instrument, pilgrimage infrastructure generated, hospitality income. Monastic orders turned vast tracts of European farmland into productive agricultural enterprises, and canon law, which governed everything from marriage to inheritance across the Christian world, made Rome the supreme arbitration authority for the most consequential financial transactions in European life. By the High Middle Ages, the papacy was not simply a spiritual institution with money. It was a financial institution with a spiritual product, and it understood the difference. What made it unique was permanence. Kings died, dynasties collapsed, banks failed. But the church was, in its own theology, eternal. That made it the most creditworthy entity in the medieval world, and credit, as every banker knows, is the foundation of everything. Fast forward to 1929, the year of the Great Crash, and Percet for the Vatican. The year of a very different kind of transaction. Nearly 60 years, the papacy had existed in a peculiar limbo. When Italian unification had absorbed the old papal states in 1870, the Pope retreated behind the walls of the Vatican and declared himself a prisoner. The Holy See had no formal legal standing, no territory, no sovereignty. Mussolini, eager for Catholic legitimacy, saw an opportunity. The Lateran Treaty of February 1929 was signed between the Holy See and the Kingdom of Italy. It was presented to the world as a diplomatic settlement, a resolution of the long Roman question. But buried within it was a clause that would define the Vatican's financial trajectory for the rest of the 20th century. Italy agreed to pay the Holy See 750 million lira in cash and 1 billion lira in Italian government bonds as compensation for the loss of the papal states. In a single stroke, the Vatican received what amounted to a sovereign endowment fund. The challenge and the opportunity was what to do with it. The man given that task was Bernardino No. He was not a priest. He was a financier, a former representative of the Banca Commerciale Italiana, experienced in European bond markets and international negotiation. Nogara accepted the role on one condition, that he answered to no one but the Pope, and that he be free to invest anywhere, regardless of religious doctrine. The Pope agreed. It was perhaps the most consequential financial appointment in the history of the Catholic Church. Under Nogara's direction, the Vatican became something that had never existed before. A sovereign wealth fund wrapped in a cassock. Nogara diversified aggressively. He moved Vatican money into Italian blue-chip stocks. He bought shares in foreign utilities, insurance companies, and chemical manufacturers. He accumulated gold quietly, steadily through Swiss channels. He invested in real estate across Rome, Paris, and London. During the Second World War, the Vatican's financial position became even more complex. Nogara continued to manage assets across belligerent nations simultaneously. Vatican gold transited through neutral Switzerland. Holdings were restructured through the Istituto per l'Opera di Religione the Institute for Religious Works, which had been founded in 1942 and would later become infamous under its common name, the Vatican. Bank, the IOR, was unlike any financial institution in the world. It was not a commercial bank. It did not answer to Italian banking regulators. It did not publish balance sheets. It was exempt from exchange controls that applied to every other entity in Italy. It was, in the most precise sense of the phrase, beyond the law, not because it acted illegally though, later chapters would complicate that story, but because it existed in a legal space that no other institution inhabited. Vatican City was a sovereign state. Its financial entities were state entities, and sovereign states, under international law, are not subject to the regulations of other sovereign states. By the time Nogara retired in the 1950s, he had transformed a one-time settlement payment into a global portfolio that no external authority had ever fully mapped. The Vatican did not merely have money, it had the architecture of financial invisibility. The Vatican's financial opacity did not remain merely theoretical. In the 1970s and 1980s, it became scandalous. The central figure was Roberto Calvi, a Milan banker who ran Banco Ambrosiano, one of Italy's largest private banks, and who had forged deep connections with the Vatican Bank under its director. Archbishop Paul Marcinkus Calvi had used the Vatican Bank's unique legal status as a shield. Money moved through IOR accounts in ways that bypassed Italian banking law. Funds were routed to shell companies in Latin America. Massive loans were made to entities that existed only on paper. When Banco Ambrosiano collapsed in 1982 in what was, at the time, the largest bank failure in Italian history, investigators found a hole of over $1 billion that traced, in part, to Vatican-connected accounts. Roberto Calvi was found hanging beneath Blackfriars Bridge in London. In June 1982, a death that was first ruled suicide, then reclassified as murder, the case was never conclusively solved. The Vatican Bank acknowledged a connection to the Ambrosiano collapse and made a payment of $244 million, described as a gesture of goodwill without admitting legal responsibility. It was not a confession, but it was not nothing. The scandal forced a partial opening. For the first time, the Vatican began negotiating frameworks for financial transparency with Italian authorities. But the key word is partial. The IOR remained exempt from European Union banking directives. Its beneficial ownership rules remained opaque by international standards. Its assets, estimated by various investigators at anywhere between $10 and $15 billion in the early 2000s, remained unaudited by any independent external body. When it came slowly, and it came from the outside. By the early 2010s, the pressure had become impossible to ignore. VAL, the Council of Europe's anti-money monitoring body, issued a report on the Vatican in 2012. The findings were pointed: the Holy See met only a fraction of international standards on financial transparency, beneficial ownership disclosure, and anti-money laundering controls. The Vatican was, in the language of international finance, a high-risk jurisdiction. Pope Francis, who took office in 2013, made financial reform one of his signature priorities. He established a new secretariat for the economy. He commissioned an audit of IOR accounts, thousands of dormant accounts, many held by religious orders, but others with more obscure origins were closed in 2014. For the first time in its history, the Vatican Bank published an annual report. It was a remarkable document, not for what it revealed, but for the fact that it existed at all. The reforms were real, but they were also carefully bounded. The IOR retained its status as a sovereign financial institution. Its assets remained protected by the same diplomatic immunities that shield any state's central bank. The fundamental architecture, the thing that Nogara built, the thing that the Lateran Treaty made possible, remained intact. The Vatican had reformed its behavior. It had not dismantled its structure, and that distinction matters enormously. The Vatican's story actually teaches us not about religion, but about the relationship between sovereignty, law, and money. Every financial system has edges, places where the rules of one jurisdiction end and the rules of another begin. The history of global finance is, in many ways, the history of sophisticated actors finding those edges and building institutions in them. The Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Switzerland, these are all, in different ways, the same story. A jurisdiction that offers something the larger financial world cannot: privacy, exemption, neutrality. The Vatican was doing is before any of them. Not through tax treaties or offshore shell structures, but through the most ancient legal concept in international relations, the sovereignty of a state. What makes the Vatican unusual is not the scale of its wealth, which, while significant, is modest compared to sovereign wealth funds of major nations. What makes it unusual is the combination diplomatic immunity, religious legitimacy, historical continuity, and financial opacity, all wrapped in a single institution that answers to no electorate and no regulator with genuine enforcement power. It is, in the strictest sense, a unique financial entity, and it has been hiding in plain sight for 500 years. Number 7. The Vatican did not become a financial power through conspiracy. It did not steal its wealth in the night. It did something more interesting and more instructive. It understood earlier and more completely than almost any other institution that financial power does not require economic production. It requires legitimacy, continuity, and the right structural position in a world governed by rules. You control the rules or exist outside them. You control the game. That lesson did not begin with the Lateran Treaty. It began the moment the first evil pope understood that a letter bearing a papal seal was worth more than gold to the man who carried it across a hostile border. Belief, authority, structure, the balance sheet was always there. Most people just weren't looking at it.